Hey guys, welcome back to BriMyselfAndEye. So today I'm going to start a series here on my channel that I'm going to call Makeup 101, and it's basically for, anyone basically that wants to enhance their skills, or it's for someone who's never worn makeup before and has never touched foundation or anything like that and just wants to kind of get an idea of how to get your feet wet. So each tutorial is going to be just one segment of the face. I think that's just easier than doing a full face tutorial in 20 minutes and going through it quickly. So I'm not going to speed anything through. Each one of these is going to be actual time, and you just get faster and more efficient as you practice. So yeah, keep referring back to these videos if you want to keep improving your skills, and we'll just start with the basics of the foundation. Now, trying to find a foundation is what I equate to trying to find the perfect pair of jeans. It's just kind of like the elusive, you never quite find it, but when you do, you want to get it in every style and it just works perfectly. So when you're trying to find a foundation shade that works for you, I would swatch it on your arm, but I would also swatch it on your neckline because you're going to be blending it out. But honestly, you want to kind of match the highlights of your face as well as the shadows. So that way you kind of give just more of your skin kind of look. So when you're swatching or going to get shade match, which I highly recommend, I go and get shade matched at Sephora, and I fluctuate throughout the year as I am exposed to the sun and things like that. So it's important to know your shade, because if you don't have the right shade on, it'll make, all the difference. And even if you're trying to apply it and you do everything right, it'll still look off. So first, go get shade matched or go find your match. And then once you do, you can take that bottle with you everywhere you go when you go and buy foundation again and try to match it to that shade. Or like if you're like me, I have like a wintertime shade and then a summertime. So yeah, that's kind of how I pick mine. And then I don't wear powder foundation anymore. I used to be an Ivory 101 or 102 and Mary Kay back in the day, but I have dry to combination skin, so my skin just developed an intolerance for it. So I don't do bare minerals or any of that. I'm not against it, it's just not what my skin needs anymore. So what I'm going to show you is just liquids and cream kind of application processes. But if you want to see powder foundation routines, I'll link some of my favorites from other people below that I think might benefit you. So to start out, I'm going to go over a couple of different ways to apply. You can start out with any kind of flat top kabuki brush. This is nice. This is the Makeup Geek Base Buffer brush, and I like it because it's a little bit domed, but it's really good because with foundation you can use like the half petal seashell, and they use that a lot in like counters and stuff, and that kind of brushes it on like a paintbrush. But I like this because you can buff it into the skin, which gives a more airbrushed and flawless look. But that again depends on the consistency of the foundation that you're applying and how that works. So, and then the next option you can do to apply cream foundations or any kind of cream is the Beauty Blender. And this one has been run under the sink and squeezed out in a towel for 5 or 6 pumps, and it is damp. So what this does is this creates another option for a flawless blended look, especially if you've got a lot of different creams going on. This just is a beautiful tool. Highly recommend it, and there's not really a dupe for it that I've found. So yeah. So to start out with your foundation, I always recommend going in with the primer, and some people say they don't really see the point in it. I go back and forth. It depends on what kind of coverage I want that day, but if I want to do like my face and I'm trying to do my foundation, then I always wear a primer. And someone once said it's a crime not to prime, so that always kind of helps me remember to, because sometimes I get a little ahead of myself and don't do it. But with primers, you want to pay attention to your skin type. So if you have potentially oily skin, you want a mattifying primer. If you have drying, decombo skin, you want sort of like a luminous type of, or generic. But if you have normal to combo, I think any kind of generic primer will work. The idea is to minimize your pores. You cannot shrink your pores, but you can kind of put a seal over them almost, so that when you put it on the foundation, it'll lay nicer. Kind of like when you paint your walls. If you don't use a primer, it's going to take a lot more product with both, because you're going to go over so many times, but it just gives a more smooth finish. So it's the same concept. So I'm going to be using a little primer here. And you don't need much, just like a small pea size. That's probably more than what I really need. And you want to kind of blend it into your fingertips. Make sure your hands are clean. I just wash my hands, so wash your hands. Never touch your face with dirty hands. It's the best way to prevent acne. And you want to touch your cheeks, your T-zone, and then gently kind of massage it in all over. Anywhere you kind of have enlarged pores. I use a green corrector primer sometimes because green cancels out red. So if you have a lot of redness or rosacea or eczema, green is a good option. So that's the primer. Next, pick a foundation out that you shade matched or whatnot. And I'm going to show you, I've been using a highlighter in mine. So I'm going to give you a couple different options. You can just go in with a foundation and make sure it's shaken up or however it needs to be applied. I always go in and put some on the back of my hand first, because if you go in and dab it all over your face, unless you're in a hurry and you know you're about to blend it all out, it gives you time to really work in one spot. So I usually dab a couple of spots in an area, like a section of my face, and then I'll continue to dab more. But I find that I use less product if I do it that way, instead of going in, because if I just try to cover my face, I will use way more foundation. So I would put probably about 2 pumps on the back of your hand. And we're just going to go in sections. And I'm going to show you kind of what this looks like with a regular foundation and then with the highlight side for more of the dry skin girls like me. With foundation, I like to go in with the brush first, and then I use my beauty blender as we do more like concealing and more products. So we're just going to gently brush, and you want to press this into the skin. You don't want to swipe it, because then you'll just move it all around. If you want to kind of get it evenly dispersed, then you can swipe, but once you get it where you want it, you want to press it into the skin. And then around your eyes, I think the best thing to do, I'm going to go in with a little bit more, I think the best thing to do is to keep the foundation around, I'll just outline it, around this area here. And then you'll use your concealer and corrector, highlighter, whatever you want closer to the eye. This just keeps the creasing down and not as heavy of a look. And then if you want, you can kind of cover your eyelid with a small amount that's left over. But once you get around any angles, it's a good idea to press. And then if you have any trouble spots that aren't going away, you can just put a little bit extra on there. And then we'll conceal that in a little bit. This stippling motion takes a little bit of time, but the results are generally much better for you. And then you never want to neglect your neckline, so sweep some of the product down your chin and neckline and blend that down. I learned in a Foundation 101 class that there's this kind of face and then there's French face, which goes all the way down to the décolleté, so basically like, I guess here. So they cover their face and their neck with foundation and products like that, or BB cream. So if you ever hear anyone say, oh, I'm going to do French face, that means that they're doing their makeup from here to the décolleté area and this area here. Which can be good if you have problem spots or areas or you want to even out your complexion. That is that half done. And that's probably about 1.5 pumps. Now I'm going to do this side to show you how to do a foundation, mix it in with a highlighter. There's a couple of different options. I'll list some drugstore options and some other options in the description bar below if you're interested. But I'll do about 1.5 pumps of foundation. Actually, I'll just go ahead and do 2, just to make it even. So you want to do like 2 or 3 parts foundation, if you will, to 1 part highlighter. This is a liquid highlighter. I would limit this to about 1/2 pump. So you kind of have this little cocktail here. And then you want to blend this nicely all in on the back of your hand. And if you have any dull skin or dry skin, doing this technique will help add the highlight without having that kind of like Becca Opal or Mary Luminizer by the Balm kind of highlight. This is much more of a natural glow from within type of highlight. And go ahead and do this side. If you have extremely oily skin, you can still do this, but I would make sure that I would use a mattifying foundation with it, like the Makeup Forever HD, or also using a mattifying primer. But you want to kind of control where you highlight, so I would recommend this more to normal, to dry, even to combination skin, personally. So when you do the highlighter in there, it like doubles your product, so a little goes a long way. And then once you've got the product kind of dispersed, like we said, kind of swipe it, and then we're gonna press it in and stipple it. That's what that is. If you hear someone say stipple in your foundation, they mean do this little motion here. Just lightly press. I think what that does is it helps set the foundation in your pores or on your pores. Then you want to get the hairline on both sides of the ear. I forgot to do that one. I kind of brush it over my ear a little bit. Don't neglect your neckline. And then I would lightly put it on the hairline. And I would avoid the eyebrows. Some people cake it on and don't realize, and then they have to wash it off, and then it messes up all this. A little bit's okay. It'll actually help prime the eyebrow for pomade or powder, but I try to keep it off this area. So again, foundation I keep within this kind of boundary and then blend it out. Yeah. So this side has the highlight, and as you can see, it's not like shimmery or glittery in any way. It's just kind of a more lifted look. So the one that I used was the Kevin Aucoin Celestial Liquid Lighting. This is good for mature skin. It doesn't settle in creases or fine lines. So if you have mature skin but you want that, the hard thing is with skin, if you do too much of a highlighter and you have mature skin, it can actually age you. But the key to youthful looking skin is dewy skin, so you kind of have to play with it. But a liquid highlighter I would highly recommend over a powder for anyone that's got any fine lines or wrinkles that they're worried about and want that youthful glow. So this is a beautiful combination. And this side isn't, it's not terribly like night and day different. But I think this one's a little bit duller and it has less life and color. But that's just me. This side, as you can see, kind of has some, it hits my face a little bit differently. I'm gonna put some highlighter foundation that I have left over on this side. So I used about 3.5 full pumps of foundation and then half a pump of the liquid highlighter to achieve this. Whereas before, I kid you not, I was using at least 4 pumps. But I'm doing more of a full coverage face right now. You can even get away with like 2 pumps of foundation. Or 1, depending on the brand. So I've swiped the highlight and foundation on, and now I'm going to stipple it in. If you have a lot of expression lines, the stippling motion is best because it will help prevent creasing. I really take my time with the skin because it doesn't matter what kind of face you put on or eyes. If your skin, if you don't feel confident in your actual skin, it's not going to feel as nice or look as good to yourself, which we are our own worst critics. So there's the foundation and liquid highlighter combination that I have been going towards lately, and it may not look like it matches on camera because the camera picks up different lighting, but I guarantee you it matches because I was matched in the store and I've been playing around with this for a bit and I really love this shade. So yeah, that is how you apply liquid foundation. And the next phase of this, I will show you how to do a cream correcting, highlighting, and then a cream contour.